Hey, what's up, everybody? This is my new podcast I got going on to talk about cybersecurity. This podcast don't have no name, but eventually it's going to get a name. So the person I'm bringing on is Osasu. He's a good friend of mine. Without him, I wouldn't even be in cybersecurity. I wouldn't even know what information security is or ISO. I wouldn't know none of that. He's a good dude, but I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey man, listen, what you just said about you not getting into cybersecurity without me, I can say the same thing about you, man.
Dang.
Hey, you know what I'm saying? We didn't get into
Yeah.
cybersecurity without each other, so that's all good. But, my name's Osasu Osaji. I am currently in cybersecurity as a ISO. That is an information system security officer. I've been in cybersecurity for I want to say maybe 5 years. And I'm probably gonna stay in cybersecurity for 5, 10, 15 more years.
That's good, man.
Yeah,
That's
yep, yep.
good. It's a good field. So,
Mm.
so how's your day going? Pretty
My
good.
day is good, man. It's Black Friday and I'm black.
You
I
see,
mean, it don't get no better than that. It was a easy day in the office, so it's been pretty chill.
I got you. I got you. How was your Thanksgiving?
And it was awesome, bro. It was awesome. I definitely
Okay.
thank God for it. Got the opportunity to spend time with family, and I ate.
You ate,
So
ate good. Me too. I ate good too.
yeah, I ate good, and I kept on eating.
Got you.
For sure.
So, so in this podcast, I try to start off like how your cybersecurity journey was, and just so people can get a feel on how to get into it. So, I know you. I know I went to school with you, but can you give me just like when you was in college, like what was just give me some of your early life. Like tell me about your early life. Like starting off in school, college.
I went to Bowie State University. My major had nothing to do with tech, cybersecurity, information systems. I was a major in criminal justice.
Okay,
I got
okay.
into criminal justice. It's a funny story. The reason that I did criminal justice is because you didn't have to go that far when it came to math.
I
So
understand.
I went into criminal justice because I was running away from math. I am not the best in math. I'm decent, but once you
Hmm.
started adding all these letters into it, I got confused. I said, "Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna just stay with criminal justice, and I'm gonna see where it takes me." But nonetheless, man, the criminal justice field was definitely a great field. When I
What
got
school? So what school you went to? What school?
Bowie State
Okay,
University.
Bowie State.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Shout out to my Bulldogs. Um, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But yeah, I graduated 2017 from Bowie University in criminal justice. Now, when I graduated, it was hard to find a job in criminal justice just because it's
Hmm.
such a vague field, and especially when you're trying to get into career field. There's not that many options of which you can take, and not too many routes that you can take once you graduate.
Hmm.
Because it's either, hey, you want to be a lawyer, or do you want to go into the police department? But
Yeah,
those are
that's
really the two places that people try to, place you in. But
hmm
outside of that, it's really hard to find a job in criminal justice in which you want to stay and you want to make a good amount of money.
Yeah, and at the time you was at Bowie, he was pondering. He was working at J.C. Penney also, right?
Yes, I was. So I was working at J.C. Penney. I was a loss prevention.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know what they call it now. I guess security person. So I did that throughout my duration at Bowie State. And then after I graduated, I did get promoted to a manager at
Okay.
another JCPenney location as a loss prevention manager.
Okay, so as you're about to graduate college, you're like, should I be a police officer? You're contemplating it. I understand. Same thing as me, because they didn't really have any options. So I think at the time you got a big break. You had two jobs that reached out to you, two, a government contracting position. I think one was a security guard, and I think one was
Mm-hmm.
a background investigator. So can
Mm-hmm.
you talk about like how you got that opportunity and just kind of go into some of the details or some of the requirements for those positions coming out of school and how you felt when you got those positions
Um,
offers.
right. Great question. So the security position, I think that was recommended by a friend. I
Mm-hmm.
can't really recall who it was. And then the background investigator position was a position that I applied for. Not really
Mm-hmm.
knowing anything about background investigating. I thought it really had a lot more to do with like police work. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know it has a lot more to do with just like vetting people's clearances or asking them questions to see if they can possibly get their clearance or not. But it was a time in which I was contemplating whether I wanted to go the security route or
Mm-hmm.
if I wanted to become a background investigator. And the reason I was contemplating, they both was providing me a top secret clearance, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
only issue is one paid more money than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of convincing from you and some of our
Yeah.
colleagues from Bowie State. And I went ahead and I just chose the position of just, becoming a background investigator just because there was a lot more room for growth. And on top of that, it would have opened some more opportunities for me as well.
So with the clearances, a lot of people don't understand what that is, but can you explain kind of the value of having a clearance? How it can help you out?
So having the clearance, man, is very important. I would tell anybody who is trying to get into IT, cybersecurity,
Mm-hmm.
um, any area in that, like you want to get a clearance just because most government contracting positions require one. So
Mm-hmm.
you can have a lot of these certs, you can have a lot of experience, you can have a degree, undergrad and even a graduate's degree, but having that clearance is kind of like the vital thing that you may need in order for you to get a position for a government contracting job. Now, if you already have a lot of experience, what
Mm-hmm.
happens is a lot of these companies may just go ahead and just pay for it. And I know
Mm-hmm.
you'll probably get into that later. But if
Uh-huh.
you don't necessarily have the experience, then they're a lot more reluctant to pay for your clearance, and they rather you already have a clearance before they try to hire you.
Yeah, it's a valuable. It helps narrow for me. It helps narrow down the job field because
Sure,
coming out of school, you don't have any experience. And when I was coming out, I thought I was going to be a lawyer or just try to go back to school just so I can find other options. But the clearance helped really narrow down for me. It's easier for me to help you get a job at all times. So after
sure.
you, after you looked at those positions, kind of explain like, you choosing your position, just how you start working in the federal contracting space. Just kind of give a brief overview of some of the things you did,
As far as like how I got into it.
like just like kind of like the admin work you started doing, and then how did you slowly start getting into cybersecurity? Like, just kind of that process.
So how I got into cybersecurity was it's very funny. I met a mutual friend between me and you at a house party.
Mm-hmm.
And this is me and Chris back in the day. Back in them days
Mm-hmm.
when people were still young and
Yeah.
and alive. But yeah, I met a friend, a mutual friend at a house party, and she told me that she worked for this company called General Dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me she looked at my resume. She said my resume looks good. You just probably want to polish up some things and maybe add some things as well, so it can look more appealing to the hiring manager. So I did that. I made some modifications to my resume. She recommended me to the hiring manager. I had an interview. I did well in the interview, and I got offered the position. Now, um, what I was doing at the time, I was a declassification analyst, and really, what that entails is that you're just looking at old classified documents, and you're trying to see if those documents need to be declassified. It's very tedious work, very chill, but also very tedious at the same time. Now, mind you, that was a very mundane task, right? It's repetitive. You're doing the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had my sights on trying to get into IT.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was a little leery at the time because where I was at, I was making good money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also at the same time, it was one of those dead end jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Damn.
it has, yeah, it has a cap in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at this IT position. When I got offered the IT position, I was contemplating that. I was like, well, should I really get into IT right now? And a lot of it was just fear. Like I didn't think that I would be able to actually fulfill the responsibilities of the
Hmm.
position that they was hiring me for. And the position was a cybersecurity engineer, but I was mid level, so I wasn't
Hmm.
even coming in as entry. But they were so sold by the interview that I did. They believed that I was able to fill the mid level cybersecurity engineering position. So when I got in there, man, it was at first it was a little rocky because I had to learn Red Hat, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. Let me walk it back real quick. Walk it back real quick. So just to sum it up, you was working as an analyst. You was
mm,
under at the time you was working as an analyst. You realized that this job was going to become a dead end job
mm,
eventually, or it was kind of not going to lead you to a good place. So you start studying for the security plus, and then you once you got your security plus, then you got offered this position, and that's where you're at right now. Okay.
yep, yeah. I
Okay.
got
Okay.
my
Okay.
security plus. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for that reminder. So once I got in there, like I said, it was a little rocky at first because of the learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you probably know this as well, going into or transitioning from something like an analyst or the analyst or any other job market, right? And then going
Mm-hmm.
into IT, man, it's a huge challenge because it's almost
Yeah.
like they're speaking entirely different lingo.
It's a whole
Um,
lingo. Trust me, it's a whole lingo. I'm like, what are they talking about? They're talking about RTOs and all these different. It's confusing sometimes. Trust me.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
you feel like it's a language barrier, and you come in with what you know, but you then realize what you know isn't necessarily enough.
It's not.
So I had to do a lot of catching up. So I used to use many tools like IT Pro TV to learn Red Hat, learn the
Hmm.
command line, learn how to navigate the command line. And then over time, like it started to get easier. But I think as the fear went away, I started to accept the fact that hey, it's either I'm going to try to know this and learn it, or I'm
Hmm.
going to fail. And sometimes you need to actually fail a couple of times before you eventually succeed. And I think for me, that's what was going on. I did get things wrong here and there. I was told, hey, you need to address this, you need to address that. It was nothing major in any type of way, but it all kind of just helped my maturation process.
Okay.
So at that time, I just accepted what the role was, and I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna figure this out. And eventually, I got to the point where I felt a little bit more seasoned in my role.
Yeah. So like, can you? So you was a mid-level cyber engineer. First off, can you give like a range on what like a mid-level cyber engineer can make?
Mid
Just kind of a
level
range.
cyber, great question. Mid level cybersecurity engineer, mid level, I would say between 85 to 100K, mid
Okay.
level.
8,500K,
Yeah,
and and keep in mind we're doing this is federal contracting, so you have to have a tops, you have to have some type of clearance, you have to have your
yep,
security plus, and
yep.
okay, so you have to have all those things in place. Okay, can you give a for the position you was doing as the cyber engineer? Can you just give basically what was your roles, and did you have just give me some of your roles that you had to do in the role.
So for us, we had to do a lot of troubleshooting
Mm-hmm.
on our Linux servers. So
Mm-hmm.
they had a contract with the Navy,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so what we had in our production environment mirrored what they had in this.
I'm
Um,
sorry. Can you just explain to the regular people what production means? Production system.
so production environment is the environment that they actually do a lot of the implementation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lab environment. Lab environment is almost like a sandbox environment. You do a lot of testing, so therefore you can break things if you have to. But in the
Mm-hmm.
production environment, this is the environment in which like, okay, everything that you have already tried, everything that you have already broke, but then you was eventually able to fix, it goes into the production environment, right?
Okay.
So you can't really do any trying to fix things or trying to test things in the production environment because it's your live environment
Okay.
that you're going to be using.
Yeah.
Um, so I did a lot of troubleshooting there. I also did a little bit of EMAS, did some STIG compliance as well. And because I developed some experience in Red Hat, I had to actually address a lot of the vulnerabilities that we had on our Red Hat
That's
servers.
good. Yeah, I remember you was doing a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. And also just maintaining our ACAS environment. I had to set up and maintain the ACAS environment. The ACAS is basically just a vulnerability scanner for your network environment.
So,
But
so for, okay. Go ahead. I'm
mhm.
sorry. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Nah,
Finish.
you good.
So, like with Red Hat, would you recommend a lot of people get into Red Hat? Because from what I've seen, a lot of federal agencies they use Red Hat. Uh, would you recommend any certs for that?
Yeah, I would recommend if you want to get into Red Hat and you want to learn Red Hat, obviously the first thing you have to ask yourself are, do you find an interest in it? Because it's
Hmm.
either you can do Red Hat or you can do Windows, right?
You're right.
Um, Red Hat is open source, right? It
Hmm.
uses open source software, so therefore, open source software is just code that is publicly accessible to anybody. So
Hmm.
you can manipulate the code, change the code, distribute the code however you want to do it. So
Hmm.
it just creates more room for creativity for people who want to become developers, right? Especially in the DevOps space. Red Hat, the cert that you should be seeking or going after the RHCSA,
Hmm.
um, from what heard, it's a very challenging cert.
It is.
Um,
I've studied for it. It's very challenging. Very technical, sir.
Yeah, I've actually been looking into studying for that myself, and even though I'm not necessarily working on like Red Hat servers and going through the command line at my job right now on a day to day, I still practice with Red Hat just to always keep me fresh on what it is that I know or on my knowledge really. But yeah, if anybody wants to get into Red, I would recommend that they get the RHCSA, and they just use the available resources that are out there in order for them just to learn the command line. Like you can get VMware or get a virtual box on your laptop,
Hmm.
and then you can basically just upload RHL because it's Red Hat Enterprise Linux. You just upload that into your VM, and then you can just start practicing the command line.
Okay, and then also too for this position, I know you started off doing some RMF. You started
Hmm.
doing a little bit of RMF. I know you didn't get too heavily into it, but can you just give a brief synopsis into what RMF is?
Okay, sure. So RMF is risk management framework, right? So RMF is really the template and the guidelines that federal agencies and contractors use in order for them to identify and mitigate risks, right?
Hmm.
So it's all about maintaining your security posture. So any vulnerabilities that you may have, you're using those guidelines in order for you to rectify or mitigate those vulnerabilities in your information or on your information system.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I also have one more question before we move on to the next. The next,
Sure.
also for this position, I remember you was telling me about how it was hard just getting into the position because it was so new to you. Can you just
Mm.
give some people some tips they can do on what you did to become good at the position?
Which one for the ISO or when I was a cyber?
No, for the mid level cyber was it a cyber engineer?
Um, I would say one thing you would have to do is to use different courses.
Hmm.
I am not a fan of like boot camps or anything like that.
Hmm.
There's a lot of available free and also paid resources that you can use online. I think, like I mentioned earlier, you can use IT Pro TV.
Hmm.
I learned a lot in
It's
regards
great.
to. Yeah, I learned a lot
I
in
loved
regards
it.
to how to. It was awesome, man. It was a paid subscription, but still like it was worth it just because of everything that they was providing for you. And I learned the Linux command line just going through there. And also, man, just using your coworkers as well. Fortunately enough, I definitely had coworkers that I worked with that was also kind of mid level and kind of I don't want to say they was learning or at the same knowledge base that I was at, and they knew a little bit more, but they were still willing to kind of help me out. But it takes a
Mhm.
lot of hard work, man. Like sometimes it takes just staying late and
Takes
and
time, yeah.
having staying late and just having like I said to use those resources, doing more studying. If you have a project that you're working on, if you're not able to, I guess, move at the same pace as everybody else, then you may just have to stay a little earlier or come in a little. I'm sorry, stay a little later or come in a little earlier just for you to try to, stay ahead of the curve. So that would definitely be my advice for anyone getting into or wanting to be a cybersecurity engineer.
That sounds great. Even for myself, that's the only way you can get stay late, stay.
Hmm.
You got to put in the work. I see a lot
Hmm.
of things online. People talk about, hey, just come in, get this money, and it's easy. It's not easy, and we both know this. So you got to put in the
Yeah.
work, and that's why we always link.
Oh yeah, man. We got to put a most wanted list for those people that's saying that. That's crazy.
Yeah, so we're going to go into and so this is the framework. So I know throughout your career in your next positions, you just mainly started to focus on as an ISO, information system security officer. Can
Sure.
you tell people, what the basic requirements would be to do that type of role as an
Uh,
information system?
I think to be an ISO, if you really want to get into a cybersecurity space, that's probably the best role to kind of just get your feet wet. Because
Non-technical.
yeah, it's not really technical, but it is good to have some technical experience. But if you just fresh out of college or you
Hmm.
don't really have any IT experience or cybersecurity experience, you get your security plus, you get a clearance. Um, you can get in as a ISO. Now, obviously word of mouth and recommendations, they help as well. But from what I've heard and seen, if you have your security plus and you have a clearance, a federal clearance, then you'll find your way into being an ISO on a contract.
Yeah, and then also, Duke, can you just talk about some of the day-to-day of being an ISO, just to give people just a brief synopsis on what an ISO, what it's doing throughout the day?
Yeah, man, it's so really all you're doing is just managing and monitoring the information system that you're working on. So for me, I do a lot of working on documentation.
Hmm.
Just maintaining documentation. A lot of documentation that we have is tailored to the controls that we look up or that we have to assess through EMAS. And EMAS is really just a dashboard of your information system. It basically tells you how many controls are unassessed, how many controls are non-compliant. It also gives you like some system info, like the CIA was it the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So that kind of just gives you the impact level of your information system. It gives you so many other, I guess, metrics that kind of tell you how to properly manage your security posture when it comes to your information system. Other things that I do is STIGs. I work on STIGs a lot, and because of my Red Hat experience, I'm able to STIG against some of our Red Hat servers,
Hmm.
or help engineers in regards to just looking at the STIG checklist that they have to address whenever we have some vulnerabilities after doing a STIG check. We also have ACAS, right? So some of our ACAS results we get back from our production environment if your information system or your project or program, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
has a production environment. So you look at some of your ACAS results. You also have to implement ACAS scans if necessary. So I do that sometimes as well. Other things that I do, I would say creating poems, and that's also
Hmm.
done through EMAS as well.
So
And
with poem, and go back to poems. Poems, and just so everybody can know, when you create a poem, say you see a Cat 1 a vulnerability, you get a
mhm,
vulnerability, maybe you can't remediate this vulnerability now. So when you
mhm.
create a poem, you create the poem so you can create a plan to fix it later. So I just wanted to touch on that real quick.
Right. And I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically just a plan of action, right?
Okay.
And that's what it means, a plan of action, um, and milestones. So a lot of people, what happens is like they'll create poems, and you've experienced this as well, Chris, and they forget to address those poems later. But
Hmm.
what poems are supposed to be is a way of monitoring that Cat 1 vulnerability that you have, and just monitoring just to make sure that you do eventually address it within the time frame that
Hmm.
you listed in the poem.
Okay. And then also too, I know you. So the EMAS is kind of like the management software for RMF. The NIST guidelines are kind of how you review to know how to mitigate the controls when you're testing them, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you. And yeah, so and then also too. I'm not sure, if you have on top of your head the steps of RMF. Do you have it?
Oh, the
If you want.
steps. Yeah, yeah, sure. I believe is categorize is step one, select step two, implement is step three, assess step four, authorize step five, and monitoring is step six. But I think because of the NIST 800-37 revision two, they added a seventh step, and that's continuous monitoring, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give any college students? Just to get back on that one more time, like anybody, college students or anybody that's trying to transition to cybersecurity, what advice would you give them?
Uh, get their security plus.
Okay,
Get
start with
this.
that.
Yeah, if they want to get into cybersecurity, get your security plus and find a way to get a clearance.
Okay.
And just to kind of, and I want to share this, man, because this is my story or testimony how I got into
hmm
cybersecurity. And you know it, I was a JC Penney manager,
Yeah, you are.
right?
I
And
remember.
yeah, I was
I
making some
remember
pretty
very
good
well.
money. I just graduated, now I'm a manager. I'm kind of feeling like the man, like the boss, you know what I mean? So I'm
Boss
making
man.
50 I'm making 50K. And I don't think I told you this. Um so when the background investigator position, when they said that I got the position, you remember
hmm
that it took, I think they say about 6 to 8 months before your
hmm
clearance actually gets cleared. And during that time, I think towards the end, right after I'd done the interviews with the investigator and all that stuff, and it was getting close to the time of my start date, I got a promotion at
Okay.
JC Penney. So I got a 10K bump to 60K. And I was contemplating about that. I'm like, and the reason I was contemplating is because I'm getting 60K as a JC Penney manager, and the background investigator position was 18 an hour, right?
hmm
And I remember having a conversation, and you didn't know about how much I was getting,
I
but
ain't know. I never asked. You know how I
yeah,
ask people. I don't want to know your money. Your money, your
right,
personal business.
right. And you never knew how much I was getting, but the one thing you kept telling me, hey, oh, sometimes you got to take a step back to go
Yeah,
forward.
you gotta take a step back, straight
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
I
always
did it. We all did
appreciate
it.
that advice. Yeah, I appreciate that advice from you. So my advice to anybody that's coming out of college, one, you want to trust God, and because it's going to be a process, right? And you want to lean on something, especially somebody who is of faith. You just want to trust God coming out the process. Two,
hmm
don't have high expectations. And I know a lot of people, it's been circulating on many different platforms on the internet that, hey, you can make 100K with no experience. Come on, like that's
No,
that
it's not gonna happen.
the
I'll tell
math
you
ain't
straight up.
mathing. The math ain't
You
mathing
ain't
because
gonna
you
make
got
no
to put
100K over here.
you ain't gonna make 100K. So you have to understand, and sometimes you gotta lowball yourself. You know what? Maybe I can only get 50, 60K. And I know, you want to aim high, and I definitely understand that everybody wants to do that. But in order for you to not put strain on yourself and to not discourage yourself, don't have high expectations. And three, don't give up. Get your
Facts.
cert, and once you get your security plus, find a way to get his clearance. And from there, man, you have to just continue to elevate yourself and continue to just make improvements in order for you to get to where you want to be. As you always say, and I know this is like his slogan, get 100%, well, not 100%, but get 1% better every day.
That's
So,
facts.
yeah, a lot of people can take that same motivational tip and apply it to their daily lives, and they can get to where they need to be.
Yeah, that's summed it up. You just gotta do what you gotta do. I remember my first job. With me, I wasn't making that much money. I was making I think it was 60 or 70K. And it was like I had to do what I had to do. I didn't know anything, and then eventually I knew it would pay off, and I would get what I deserve. So it's like you gotta do what you
Mm-hmm.
gotta do. And that's for everybody. You gotta work hard to get
Mm-hmm.
what you want. So I appreciate you for saying that part. And then also too, like I forgot to ask, how much does what's the pay salary for an ISO? Like a range.
Oh, what do you mean, like a entry, mid, uh,
Let's say for like an entry level.
entry level? I would probably say 75.
Like what's the upper end? Like kind of like a senior level.
Senior level, I would say it depends though. If you only have the security plus, I think the most you probably make is 130.
130.
But if
Okay.
you have the CISSP, I think the most you can make is 150, 160.
Okay. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that sounds about right. Yeah, you can make some good money doing the role. I will say for myself, I do. I'm gonna myself. It could get boring. It's a really boring position. You gotta make sure you're on P's and Q's with everybody.
Right. Hey, but you
And
smiling with that direct deposit hit.
he's a direct deposit. Hey, you smiling? I'm smiling too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't gotta worry about nothing. So I'm about to close it out soon. I did want to ask one more question for you. So what? Just so like I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do this again probably in a couple, maybe a year from now. What's your
Mm-hmm.
future goals with cybersecurity? What you trying to do?
So I guess my next goal right now is to try to get my CISSP.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, man, like that would definitely increase my salary going into the next job that I go to.
Mm-hmm.
But I do plan just staying in the cybersecurity space, man, as far as just as a career, and just trying to increase my pay, man. I look at it, every new job that you get, try to get 10K more, and
Yeah.
just keep doing it that way, and I'll get to where I need to go. But that's definitely my goal, man. Just trying to get 10K every job that I get, or every job that I join, and then just staying in the cybersecurity space, trying to get my cert, my CISSP, and any other cybersecurity related cert, man, just to kind of help bolster my resume.
Yeah,
So
you gotta
yeah,
get them ends. You know, that grocery store, I'm looking at the egg prices. I'm like, man, I need at least 20, 30K more by the time this I go in the grocery store, I get like four things, it'd be like $70, you know?
hey man, I'm still shopping at Aldi, bro. So
They have all these,
hey,
I need to go there, you know?
yeah, balling on a budget, baby.
Yeah, so I appreciate you,
Yes, sir.
Osasu, I'm sorry. But, I appreciate you for coming on and just giving your testimony. So I'm about to close things out. If you enjoyed the video, like the video, subscribe, put some comments in. Like I said in the video, just get 1% better every single day and just keep working. You're going to get into it. You're going to make it in
One
cybersecurity one
percent.
day. It's possible. You can look at both of us. We look like each other. It's possible. Anything's possible. Just put in the work, but you got to put in that work. You got to be sweating. When your head's sweating, you know you're doing the right thing. So, peace out, everybody. Thank you, O. I'll see you on the next video.